Is that it? We're live. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. We are so thrilled to be back again with Jason Barnard from Kalicube. We are like last time, I think a couple of weeks ago, we did a presentation with Jason who answered a lot of questions for how to teach Google how to display your personal brand. And now we're back because we realized there are some big differences in how Google views real estate professionals. Mm-hmm. So Jason, welcome back.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be back. And I didn't realize there was so much complexity in being a real estate agent when you're trying to manage your brand on Google, but we're gonna wade through the complexity and make it simple.
All right.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started for everybody. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to add this presentation here into the stream. And of course, I want for a reminder for everybody who's kind of new to us, just a super quick, introduction. My name's Tanya. I'm the founder of Brand Face, and we basically help coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, podcasters differentiate themselves. And of course, as real estate clients today, you are in that consultant category. And we help you differentiate yourself by building that personal brand so people get to know you beyond just your professional offerings, which basically sets you apart as an authority in your field. So I'm the founder. This is Michael.
Hi, guys. I'm Michael Carr. I'm also a partner in the company, but what's important to point out is I was a client before I became a partner in the company. I actually hired Tanya to teach me how to launch my brokerage, take care of my marketing at the time. I did not realize that branding was what I should have been focused on. She sold me marketing and taught me branding. It was pretty awesome. I did not realize that she had written a book, became a #1 bestseller. She asked me to write the second book, which is focused just to real estate agents. We use these principles every day. Our brokerage has grown from, in 2013, 1 agent and 1 office to offices in Orlando, Atlanta, Knoxville, and Greenville, South Carolina. And I've got about 30 of the greatest agents you've ever seen and a national network of thousands. So all from the Brand Face principles. Now, one of the things that's missing in some of those is Google. Google's important to everybody,
Yes,
right? Very exciting because they lead everything, right? And we happen to have a very big expert to this who wrote his own stuff. So Jason, welcome again. Thank you so much for doing this for us.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me. I love sharing what I've learned over the years. I mean, to present myself a little bit, I'm the brand SERP guy, and most people don't know what brand SERP is, and I forget that. A brand you've got, you know that one. SERP is a search engine results page. And so that's basically your brand message on Google is my speciality. I come from the SEO world, search engine optimization, and I've decided to niche down in just the results that appear when somebody Googles your brand name or your personal name for that matter. And that makes me, I think, the only expert in the world. And I've written the definitive book. And it's the only book, so it has to be the definitive book, called The Fundamentals of Brand Search for Business. And somebody said to me the other day, wow, you really, really do manage to kind of nail down the leadership of your market. And I was going, that's easy. I'm the only one in the market. So, of course, I'm the leader, but I'm also the last person in the queue.
Yeah.
So I've niched down so much that I'm all alone. And I'm here to help any brand, any person, to make sure that Google represents them to their audience in the way that they intended when they built their brand with Tanya and Michael.
Yeah, and what I got to add to that, what we love about Jason is he can do it in ways that we all can understand. He knows all of the language on the other side, but he has this gift of being able to give it to us in portions we can consume. All right, so it's very important. You're going to have takeaways today that you're going to be able to get started immediately and helping your Google search and how you show up. And this is very important for real estate agents. So I teach it to my agents. We want to teach it to y'all. Okay, so let's get started and let Jason do his magic.
All right. Now, to set the tone just a little bit, the last time we did a presentation with Jason, we walked you guys through the personal branding process and kind of what we do to get people set up so Jason can work best with them. I'm not going to take you through all of that today. I'm going to show you 2 slides real quick to kind of let you guys know that when we work with people, we really help them with 2 different things and how they present that personal brand on Google. Number 1, we work with them on brand messaging. And brand messaging is just that language you use to tell people who you serve, how you serve them, what qualifies you to serve them, how it makes their life better, and what makes you different from everyone else who's also trying to serve that same customer, okay? So that can take place through a biography, elevator pitch, something we coined called signature sound bites, and really those are just highlights of your brand at a glance, a call to action, those kind of things. So when you go to Google, obviously you've got to put information into Google, but it has to be the right information to set you apart and to tell Google what you do and who you do it for and answer all those questions that I just mentioned. So that's the brand messaging. The other thing, and my last slide for today, because I'm going to let these gentlemen take it over, is the next thing we do to set you up for success on Google is brand imagery. Google likes to see your association with the images that represent you as well, such as your logo, background images that are really associated with your brand and resonate with you, what you stand for, your clients, your photos from a photo shoot, brand colors, those things matter to Google as well. And so Jason, when we first met Jason, he says, wow, I just love what you guys do because I wish all of my clients came to me with these things ready, because he spends so much time working with his clients to get them ready for Google. Okay, so that's why we're like peanut butter and jelly, right? All right. So the next thing is we're going to share with you guys, we came up with 10 burning questions that we have learned over the years from real estate professionals and how Google sees them, how they should put their information into Google and the other resources that Google picks up so that Google sees them the way they want to be seen. So I'll let these gentlemen take it from here. And here's question number 1.
All right. How does Google see real estate differently?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I find these questions really, really interesting. It made me think a lot about what I do and what's specific for real estate. And the first thing that struck me is real estate is physically immovable. And Google loves things that are physically immovable because they don't change, or they change rarely. Google is trying to understand the whole world, and something like a basketball player's statistics are going to change potentially second by second during a game, certainly week by week, and that's a real problem for Google to keep up with. The house, the street, that's not going to change fundamentally very often, so it's much easier for Google to deal with. And the other thing is, because of course houses are immovable, it is by definition going to be hyperlocal. I'm looking for a house in a specific area, and I need Google to show me what's available in that specific area. And Google has Google Maps, which we all know about. And Google Maps is a huge understanding of the world, the physical world, in terms of streets, houses, shops, traffic lights, railways. It's an amazing piece of engineering, I would say, that Google has managed to understand right down to the closest meter. What is where, who is where, and it sounds a bit complicated, but a guy from Amazon said, Google Maps is unique because it can solve geospatial queries it has never seen before in real time. And that simply means it can get you from A to B when it never has had that question before, went from A to B from this person for that specific purpose. And Google Maps is therefore incredibly powerful incredibly important, and especially for real estate, a major, major player. And then the other thing that struck me is how important Android is. And we don't think about Android necessarily in this context. And if you think, I'll tell you a little story, which is really quite cool, is me and my friend played a concert. I'm a double bass player in my spare time. We played a concert in a town called Lyon in France. And the people at the concert said, whatever you do, don't leave now because the traffic's awful. But my friend Hugo wanted to get home quickly. And so we decided to leave, and we used Google Maps. And Google Maps took us the most torturous route you could possibly imagine through these tiny back streets. And I realized that the same car had been following us throughout this entire process. And what Google was doing using Android phones was managing traffic in real time. Because
Michael
all of the
has
people
said
with
that
Android
for years. Sorry. Michael has said that for years. He said, Google's telling these people to go this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's in traffic situations telling other people to go another way. It's the only way that you don't cause other bog downs.
Yes, exactly. So the 3 cars behind us would have been sent a different way and therefore spread out the traffic. And that's just to illustrate the power of Google Maps and that idea of being able to solve geospatial queries it has never seen before in real time. And obviously, from that perspective, you then have Google Maps with Android, and Android allows Google to understand much better the local environment, allows Google to be incredibly hyper-local. And we'll see further down the line where mobile phones, desktop comes in terms of what people are looking for. But yes, right, definitely, from the off, real estate, your first thing to bear in mind is I need to be hyper-local. I need to address the audience who are actually either in my location or looking for a house in the location I deal with.
Mm-hmm. All right. How about Google local services? Why should real estate agents utilize Google's local services?
Well, in terms of navigating or using the local results, Google is way, way ahead of everybody else. Who uses Bing Maps?
Right.
Relatively few people use Apple Maps. Even people with Apple iPhones will often use Google Maps. They are the leader. And the point about Google is when you search, you've got both paid results and you've got organic free results. And you can play on both tableau, as it were. The incredibly important thing here is that Google needs to know that you offer the deal the audience is looking for. So your example here is Realtor near me. The concept of near me hyper-localized. The person is looking for a realtor. I need to be top of that list.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can be top of the list organically for free, or I can be top of the list by paying. Now, obviously, Google makes its money from the paid results. Some people just scroll through the paid results because they don't like the idea of paid results. Some people don't. Paid results can get very expensive. When you've got high ticket offers like selling a house, I would imagine the cost per click in Google is going to be pretty high. But the important thing, whether it's paid for or organic, is to make sure Google understands what it is you offer and to whom. And I said earlier on, Google wants to understand. It's up to you to educate it. That was the last program we did together.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't enough for you to sit there and think, well, Google's really smart. It's understood already. Yes, it might have understood already. Has it understood completely? Has it understood correctly? And is it confident in that understanding? And so that idea of confidence in understanding is built into the organic results. The fact that it is confident, it is correctly understood, it is recommending you as the best solution to the problem the user has expressed. In this case, somebody said, I'm looking for a realtor near me. The person at the front there, the top of the list, is either paid or the best possible solution that Google can find to recommend.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about the paid stuff is it still has that idea of best solution. So if I wanted to bid and become top of the list in the realtor business in Washington State, because I'm not a good solution, I would not be able to get there. It's not even that I would have to pay a lot of money. Google will not put me there because I am not a good solution. Because Google's only hope or only aim in life is to find the most efficient solution for its user possible. And whether that's paid or organic, it's the same aim. So don't get the idea, if I pay enough money, I can always get to the top of paid. You need to pay attention to the paid offers that Google is allowing and think, how can I demonstrate to Google's paid algorithms the value I can bring to their users who are my audience? Because Google will put me at the top, not because I pay most, but because I pay something and I'm the best solution. So you end up with this situation in both of them where you're saying, I need to prove to Google that I am the best solution.
Mm-hmm. And you suggest that in this space that a little of both is the best way to go? Some paid as well as teaching. Do you think that that's probably one of the best?
Yeah, I would suggest that some paid. How would you put it? Organic. The free stuff is for life. Basically, you get these people coming to see you, and it's free and it's for life, as long as you maintain your credibility and Google's understanding. And paid, I would suggest that there are going to be periods when you're going to be struggling. If you have a paid campaign running, you can turn the tap up. So I think it's a good idea to have a balance of both to make sure that you can maintain throughout the drought periods, as it were, that you have a solution. Because Google Ads actually also works on the fact that if you've had a long-running account that spends a little bit each month, it's easier to turn the tap up and get more.
Right.
If you try to start from scratch, it's really difficult. So,
again,
keep a little bubbling paid campaign going underneath.
That I like that, because again, it's teaching Google on how to see you. Like, so at all times, if we're focused on saying, okay, I've got to teach, I loved it when we've met with you several times and you first pointed out to me, it's like you should view Google as a child in which you are rearing up in the way you want it to see you, in the way you want it to go. And so we tend to look at it much bigger than that, right? It's Google, right? It's Uncle Google. It's Dr. Google. Tanya was playing Dr. Google last weekend because I wasn't feeling good. And apparently I'm dead, from what she found on the Google search. But we see it as this big, giant thing that it clearly is. But we as realtors, we as entrepreneurs on the street level, we need to see it as something we're training up as a child to see us this way. So at least some small paid campaign moving along is also helping with that. Charlene Bays is a good friend of ours, and she asked, is it important to hyper localize the area you are in, county versus town or city? Do you know if that's even possible on the local services stuff?
You can hyper localize down to towns. Mm-hmm. There's no point in educating Google that you can sell a house to somebody in the town next door if you can't. Mm-hmm. So you need to make sure you're communicating where you actually can help its audience, because Google wants to help. Its users. Google wants to solve users' problems, and if you're not an appropriate solution, don't even get in the game.
I really love that. And I will tell you why. From the other side, the non-Google side, the actual realtor side, I teach my agents and the agents across the country, like my example. Okay, I would love to take over just Atlanta alone, to be the biggest realtor in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Extremely hard to do. Like extreme. You don't have the manpower. It takes a lot of money, that sort of thing. You have to keep in mind Zillows and realtors, they spend 20, 50 million a year in advertising campaigns, things like that. So the more you shrink that thought process when you're going to geo-farm a community, then the more you can do affordably, and the more you're top of mind awareness. So we can view Google the same way with our hyper localization, because you would rather do that and be introduced to a whole lot of people needing that specific need than, as Jason said, serving a town over, or a whole city over, or a whole state over that you can't actually service.
Yeah, I mean, and you can even go for districts in towns. Google gets that deep down, so absolutely no problem with that. Google doesn't. I mean, Google can identify where you are to within 2 or 3 meters. I was actually in Italy, and it said we haven't got a very good idea. We can't really geolocalize you properly. Take a photo of a building near you, and I took a photo of the most boring building I could find that didn't have any identifying features, and it immediately moved my little blue button to the left to exactly where I was.
Wow,
and that's astonishing. I mean, that
is astonishing.
Level.
Absolutely.
Sorry, another thing I wanted to point out is reviews. Reviews are phenomenally important. I was just looking there, and also Diana popped up that she bought my book and it arrived last week. And there's somebody asked what it was called: The Fundamentals of Brand SERPs for Business. Jason Barnard. You can search Jason Barnard book. And one thing there is, Diana, please can you search on Google for the fundamentals of brand SERPs for business, click on give a review in the knowledge panel, and give me a review in the knowledge panel. That is the equivalent of giving a review on Google My Business, and it's injecting not only what you say about the book, but your impression of the book, i.e. the 5 stars. And if you say something like, I found this very valuable as a realtor, the day that somebody searches for branding book for realtor, Google will remember that review, and it will pull up my result, whereas otherwise it would not. So those reviews give Google extra information about who you can serve in those very specific cases that you would never think of. And the trick as well for the smaller companies versus the bigger companies is what we call long tail, is the very specific queries. So a house in a street, or a house with 2 floors in a specific street, or a house with 15 toilets in one specific street. Those are going to be cheaper to pay for if you're paying, and they're going to be easier to get to the top of Google if you're not.
Huge
takeaway. Charlene Bays, you can give me a review on Amazon.
That's right. Go, Charlene. She will too.
She'll do that.
Delighted.
Okay. Are y'all hearing what Jason's saying? You pay attention. Obviously, right? Reviews. And because, again, that is teaching Google how to showcase you. Okay. All right. Next question here. And also we'll put the way to the book, a link to the book in the show notes too also. So I'm sure Leslie's taking care of that for you. All right. Next question. Can you tie multiple individual agent locations? I think the question here that what we're asking is it possible to tie multiple locations in a case like me, where I have a brokerage and I have agents in different cities? Is that the question that we're asking? And can you tie that in together? Will Google see that and pull those things together?
Yeah, right. Okay, and this is where I got confused, and I had to ask Tonya to explain to me what the structure of the organization of the real estate industry is. And my understanding is you have a company that has an office, or potentially multiple offices. They have multiple realtors, each attached to an office. The realtor themselves is an independent contractor.
Mm-hmm.
And so is not an employee of the company. So that then we can answer all of this in kind of one go. It's this kind of pyramid. I'm not going to say pyramid scheme because it sounds rotten. You need to explain to Google, you need to educate Google that there is a company, and that company has a head office. That head office will have a Google My Business, even if it doesn't necessarily have staff in it. Mm-hmm. But then every office it has, where a bricks and mortar office would have a Google My Business. Next down, you have the people who are doing the actual selling. They are at the same time a human being, but also an independent contractor. And the independent contractor can potentially have a Google My Business, but only if they're actually doing business from their house. The idea of Google My Business is that Google wants to have places where clients can walk in off the street.
So it's physical location.
Again, hyper location based. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So from that perspective, it's a little bit ambiguous in that Kalicube, for example, nobody can walk in off the street to Kalicube, but I still have a Google My Business because Google created one for me. I didn't have a choice. So you also have that, is that if Google creates one, just use it. If Google doesn't create one, only create one if you actually really have a workplace. And obviously, you're not going to get people walking in off the street all day long. So that's the kind of level of balance you need to hold. I had somebody who was asking me about having Google My Business for her blog. That's a big no. A blog isn't a business. It isn't a bricks and mortars business. It isn't something where you're actually dealing with clients face to face, whereas real estate, generally speaking, is. And so that distinction between you as a person and you as a contractor is something you need to figure out, and you need to find the balance. And the other thing about the whole aspect is that you need to be clear, and that's what I'm kind of thinking now about Google My Business, not Google My Business. And the structure, the pyramid structure we were talking about earlier on, is you need to be very clear, and you need to explain it in a very clear manner. And a lot of people kind of say, well, I'm a person and a bit of a realtor, and then I play football, and then I do this, and then I do that, and it all becomes this kind of jumbled mess that doesn't make sense to their clients, doesn't reassure their clients, and doesn't make sense to Google. So you really want to sit down and think, shut your eyes for 10 minutes and think, who do I serve? Where do I serve them? And why am I the best solution? That's what you've got to communicate to Google, but you need to be clear in your own mind before you do it.
I love that. That's where dialing your brand in is so important. At your personal brand, because living that is very, especially as realtors, it's very important. We never stop being realtors, and we never stop being humans. And so you really need to infuse both of that, but in very clearly about it. And hopefully, maybe Patricia, that's going to answer your question. How are you, by the way, dear? So it was good to see you. She doesn't want to be repetitive here, but should she say Maryland metro region, or she serves Bethesda? And I would think Bethesda would be the answer to that. Like, the more localized you can get, then the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what the difference is, but if Bethesda is a district and you offer houses and you have an offer within that district but not outside that district, that's what you should focus on, and that's what you should explain to Google. If you have things around that district that include other districts, you can potentially add a second district, Bethesda and Milltown or whatever it might be. So you don't have to say it's either one little district or the whole town or metro region. You can say it's this district and that one, very explicitly. And at the bottom, simple copywriting. I serve clients looking for houses in Bethesda and Milltown. Simple. Corroboration. Make sure that that same thing is said on all the sources around the web that talk about you, including your My Business, if you have one, where you can say, this is the area I serve. And then the geeky bit is Schema Markup. Now, it's quite geeky. But on our Kalicube Pro website, we have a free tool that will generate it for you. But you might want to also talk to a developer to get this written for you, because what Schema Markup does is it adds to a web page. If you have a website, you have to have a website for this to work. You add that to the page, and it's got a thing called area served. And then you can name the area served, or you can name a point and a radius around it. And Google is looking at Schema Markup, which is in the back end of the page that human beings don't see. And it's a message explicitly to Google to say, this is the exact area I serve. Be it a district, a point with a radius around it, multiple districts, multiple points with radius around them. And it's geeky. You do it once and you never have to do it again. So it is worth investing either the time to do it yourself or get somebody to write it for you. It costs you, let's say, a couple of $100. You've done it. if you don't change where you're doing business, that's going to be valid for the next 15, 20 years.
That's awesome. Is Schema sort of just in layman terms how you took the picture of the benign building and then it found you? Is that sort of how that those link together, or are those two separate things?
No, that's two separate things.
Okay.
The photo thing was image recognition. Schema markup it's Google's native language. What it does is it says, I'll take something that's written in the page and I'll translate it for Google. And I'll make it so that this information is presented to Google in its native language, because English isn't its native language. French isn't its native language. Reading off a page isn't its native language. Schema markup simply says, this person is called this. This person does this job. This person serves this audience. This person serves this area or this district or this point with a radius, and this person has this review, for example. And what it's doing is it's just presenting all the information we see and we assimilate in our brains very quickly as human beings in the manner that allows the machine to assimilate it in its brain at a similar speed.
Gotcha.
Does that makes sense?
Yes. Well, it cleared it up. That's for sure.
Yeah. It reminds me of a programming class I took way back in high school before there were computers, right? And the programming class says if then, right? If this says this person's name is this, then show this. If this show's connected to this, then show this, right? So I take it way back to the beginning of programming, but yeah,
right.
It made it much clearer for me.
Yeah, no, I actually had, when I first started programming, a friend of mine explained to me, basically Schema markup is name value pairs. And that sounds a bit weird, but basically it's a name of something with a value. And what he said to me is, think of the name as the name is a box. And then the value is what you put in the box. So the box is person. The value I put in it is Jason Barnard. The box is region served. The information I put into it is Paris. So we've got this box and what you put in, name and value, and that's all Schema does. It's a series of boxes with values, with information in them, specific to those boxes that are specific to the person we're talking about.
Very good.
That makes sense. I like that.
I like that. That was very good. I told y'all he would be able to explain it.
That's right.
I'm telling you. All right. Next question. Should agents have their own website?
Yes. I'm not even going to let you finish the sentence.
Right. We agree wholeheartedly.
That's it for that one, guys.
100% yes. You're an expert, you're an authority, and you're trustworthy. Google needs to know where you live on the web, because it will reference that to understand more about you. And that's where you can explain to Google that you're an expert, that you're an authority, and that you're trustworthy. You need to own the website where you're doing that. If you're doing it on Twitter or on Facebook or on LinkedIn, what happens if they close your account?
Amen.
So you have to have a website. And once again, it's an investment for once. If you do it properly with the branding and you think about it ahead of time, you can do a one-page website if you don't want to complicate your life. One-page website. This is who I am. This is what I offer. This is why I'm an expert. This is why I'm an authority. And this is why you can trust me because of all these reviews. End of page. That's it. So a one-page website is absolutely fine. And it needs to be a domain name that you own. Mine's jasonbarnard.com. For my company, it's kalicube.com. It could be jasonbarnard.info. The .com isn't very important anymore. So you can use, there must be a real estate TLD, a .real estate or something. Or
there actually is, but it's through NAR. So I don't know ownership-wise what that looks like. Of course, a big fan of NAR, obviously, but don't know what that looks like. But I'm very big on this. Years ago, I quit getting any kind of reviews on Zillow because I was like, it seems ridiculous because Zillow could change their mind, i.e. they have on Richard Barton's whim. right? And so then all of a sudden, what have you got? Whereas Google is sort of going to serve the public forever. And if you get reviews on that, then you have ownership of those reviews, or at least more ownership of. I love the idea of the website. And it is not against any state law or brokerage that I know of to not have your own. Obviously, there's laws that concern how you display the brokerage name. And each state has their little variants of that. Some of them say equal prominence. Some of them literally get down to inches and, pixels and all that. But nobody has a problem with you owning your own website to let the world know that you're a realtor.
Right. And at the bottom there, I put you need to own that, and then you lend yours to the agency and vice versa. And that's really, really important. Your website represents you. Google understands your expertise, your authoritativeness, and your trustworthiness through a reference to that website. That's very, very important, because what Google calls EAT, as you can see, it's an acronym, is the foundation of why it would send somebody to you rather than to somebody else. Mm-hmm. But also, the company, the brokerage, has a level of expertise, authority, and trustworthiness as well, which is credibility, let's say. And so when you link from your website to theirs and they link from their website to yours, you're indicating clearly to Google there's a relationship here. So some of their EAT rubs off on you, and some of your EAT rubs off on them. So if your brokerage is saying, I'm not sure about the link or about the representation, you need to say to them, you need me as much as I need you.
Yes.
Because Google is looking at both of our credibilities, and both of our credibilities will help each other. That is phenomenally important.
Yeah, and I want to take it just a little step further, not to start a storm by no means, but listen, that guys out here listening, this is how we defend ourselves against huge disruptors that say we want one website and everybody goes to that website, and then we will piecemeal out to the order takers who gets leads. That's how you do it. You own your own website. You link your own website to your brokerage back to you. You have some autonomy there to build your bank of business, which is very important. And if you're with a broker that doesn't want you to build your own bank of business, find another broker. All right. Should agents have a Google business page of their own? Right.
Yeah, we touched on this earlier on. It depends on the relationship with the agency. If you're an employee, no. Google will be aggressive about things that it sees as manipulation. So if you're independent and you have a website and you have an office in your home and you have a Google My Business linked to your home and a website that represents it, yes, makes sense. And you can use Google My Business to feed information Google about your area served. You can then link it to your website with an additional piece of schema with areas served. You can write it in the copy in your Google My Business and in your website. And what you would then do is have basically Google My Business is your little mini website on Google's results and Google Maps, and your website is your other website. And you need to make sure the two are always consistent. So that perspective is, number one, yes, if you're working independently for a broker, definitely it's possible if you have a physical location. PO boxes are not acceptable. And the other thing is to make sure that you don't just rely on Google My Business or Google Business Profile, as it's now called. You also have your site, even if it's a one-page site, so that's your entity home. And the entity home is the place where Google looks, where the entity lives in Google's brain. And whatever happens to Google, whatever happens to your Google My Business, whatever happens to anything else, your website is always yours.
Yeah. Now, and here's a specific question, like no PO boxes, obviously, but what about incubator offices, or like offices where in here in the United States, I assume where you are, it's probably of the same thought process. You can buy a mailbox, but you have a physical address to that place, with your mailbox being a physical suite to that, but there are hundreds of other businesses that could have that same thing. Does Google shy away from that, or does it accept it as a physical location?
I think that question actually comes up either the next slide or the one after.
Okay. All right.
But I'll answer really quickly because I'm not 100% sure.
Let's see.
Google is looking at this from a perspective of there can be multiple businesses within one location.
Okay.
And so if you have a mailbox and mail is coming in and there's a physical location, you can potentially have a Google My Business. However, that's really on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually have an office within a building, absolutely fine.
Gotcha. Okay.
A co-working space can be a Google My Business. And the justification, if you ever need to give it, would be I actually have a dedicated desk or whatever.
Right.
But you're really on the edge, and you can be caught out and deleted by Google. Getting deleted by Google on Google My Business isn't a huge issue if you have your website, you're collecting reviews elsewhere as well. Whatever you do, don't put all your eggs in the Google My Business basket. Make sure you got your website. Make sure you're collecting reviews on Facebook, whatever other platforms are relevant to realtors. And Google My Business is in addition to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to repeat that, Jason. I love that you say that, because we've been telling people forever, don't consider another platform your personal website. I know a lot of small businesses that use their Facebook business page as their website. Big mistake. Don't do that. Yes, put stuff there, but always have your own website to send them back to. So, this is a great question from Lori.
Yeah, Lori's got a great question. There should be an answer both from Jason and then I want to answer it as a broker. Jason, what do you think? You advise people to use their home address to make it public?
Well, I mean, I'm not particularly precious about my private life, so I would.
Yep.
But if I were concerned about my children, for example, or having people drop by my house unexpectedly, then I wouldn't. So it depends on your personal attitude towards that.
Agreed.
And if you really feel my home is my home and my home is my castle and I don't want anybody coming in, if you put it out on Google My Business publicly, people might just turn up at your door.
Yes. And I'll tell you this. So Lori, let your conscience, obviously be the guide on that. Like Jason said, because I thought that same thing, safety first. Obviously we teach that with realtors. So if you are concerned about that, don't do it. But I will say, I'm like Jason, I'm like, okay, stop by, you know what I mean? Especially if you want to buy something, and we'll make a big commission on it. But I started my company in the basement of my house. I had a dedicated space in there. I had employees that came and went. I didn't even know they were there. It wasn't my living quarters. The way we sectioned it off, they had their own drive, everything about it. It's still listed to this day. On a Google page of its own. So I think I've had one person ever knock on the door and say they want to buy a house. We got them with a realtor that night, and I think they signed a contract the next day. So use safety first and then decide which way you want to do with that. Okay. All right. Differences between Google Maps and Google Business. How should the agents handle that?
Right. Now, distinguishing between the two, I found the question interesting because for me it's terribly obvious, and of course what's obvious to me isn't obvious to other people because they don't spend their whole lives looking at Google results. Your Google Business profile, Google My Business, is part of Google Maps. As I mentioned earlier on, the idea of Google Maps was the cars drive around to map out photos of the entire world, all the roads. And then Google My Business is a way of identifying businesses to which people can go to buy things or to consume or to do business. And so it basically Google Business Profile or Google My Business is just dropped into Google Maps at specific locations. And Maps is hyper-localized. And it's a question when I'm using Google Maps is I want to go somewhere now, or maybe in the future, but obviously I want to go somewhere. And generally speaking, it's now, and it's predominantly phones. So, I'm walking around the street or I'm about to go out and I want to find a realtor, then that I would be using Google Maps. But it also appears on Google Search. And on Google Search, it will appear in one of two places. it can appear in the search results itself. So if you searched on Google on a desktop on search, or even on a mobile on search, realtor near me, it would show you blue links for local companies, but also a little Google Maps. So you click on the Google Maps and then you go into the full Google Maps, which is within part of Google. So that tends to be, if you're coming through Google search onto Google Maps, longer term process where I'm researching, trying to figure out who I might want to work with, out checking out reviews, rather than going there.
Mm.
So they live together, but they're kind of parallel. And so Google Maps is integrated into Google search at certain points. Google search is not integrated into Google Maps. Google Maps is isolated in that sense.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's try the next one here. How does Google see a fixed location versus no location at all?
Right. No location means no Google business profile. So if you say, I mean, we were talking about my home. If I don't want my home to be my business location, then I can't have a business profile. Don't even bother trying. But then you can also have your website. You can promote through Facebook. You can have Google ads where people click and then they come to your site. So you don't have to have a Google business profile. It's a massive disadvantage if people are actually looking to go somewhere immediately. I'm not sure to what extent people have spontaneous decisions to visit a realtor as they're walking down the street, but certainly if there's an immediacy, that's a disadvantage. But with Google search, I think I would imagine in the realtor business where the decision process is quite long, people research, people have very specific needs as well, and they need to talk to an expert. Google search is a good place to be visible and a good place to do business that can certainly perhaps overcome the disadvantage of not having a Google My Business. I think ultimately, well, you need to have a phone. I think ultimately you would need to have a physical address. And for people who are worried about safety, take a place in a co-working or a shared office. That is actually fine for Google. Some people even get annoyed because it creates them without them wanting to. So you can do without it, a physical location, but I would suggest it's probably a good idea to figure out a situation, even if you're paying a couple of $100 a month to rent an address.
Yeah. And depending on the brokerage, you could use the brokerage. I don't know if you could use a brokerage address, though. That would become confusing, wouldn't it?
No, multiple businesses can share the same address. Absolutely no problem at all.
Okay.
Once again, you just have to be very clear. And on your website, if you say the business address is there, and if you are specifically saying that is also the business address of another business, there's no problem.
Gotcha. Lori's second question, I just want to get this right. She said she was using her home address, then changed it to zip code areas. Map of area showed the map instead of her home address, and a picture of her home Google posted. Which is better?
I mean, I would suggest if you can get rid of that picture that they put of the home, it's a really good thing to do. Ideally, I mean, for me, I don't really know why Google does that, but if you can get just the locations that you serve showing, that's absolutely perfect. It will show a picture of the home or the office. We had that problem at Kalicube, and I solved that just by putting my own photo as one of the photos, and now it shows my photo instead of our horrible office.
That's awesome. We have that run in. I have, like I said, we started off in my basement. So we still have listed a legal address there with the commission. And so what's interesting, though, is two of my agents at two different times if I put in my home address, they come up. So I assume that's from stuff that they have done, right? Some Google is looking and pulling up, and there is some profile that has Kelly Denny on it, or Jennifer Fast. And that showed up, and it did show up as Michael Carr and Associates, which was interesting. Never bothered me again. I could care less. So,
right. One point about that is, yes, it's an interesting point that they can just put the information and Google will pull the information up and put it at the top of the results without your confirmation. But increasingly, Google is looking for corroboration not to get this kind of thing wrong. So if you're using the brokerage address, the brokerage website needs to confirm that long term at least. So once again, you need to work with the brokerage and say, we can help each other. This is a win-win. And if I'm using your physical address, I'm actually making you look more important to Google. I'm bringing my EAT to you in addition to the link to my website by saying that I'm actually based in these offices.
Love it. Great stuff. All right, next question. If you have a real estate license in multiple states, are you better off having one fixed location in Google, like a home base, if you will, headquarters, with multiple service areas? Or do you think, a different website name close to what you have, a different Google page? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a question as well. Do you have multiple office? If you have an office in each state, then you would have a Google business profile for each state. So from that perspective, and if you don't have an office, then obviously you shouldn't have the Google business profile. I would suggest that would put you at a disadvantage if you're not in the same state as the place you're selling, because that doesn't look to me to be very credible from Google's perspective, but also from a human perspective. If you're in Texas and telling me you can sell me a house in California, I'd be a bit dubious.
Right. But let me give you a specific, and then you answer it from that perspective, if you would. So we have a Tennessee office, Knoxville, Tennessee, Paper Mill Road. But we also have a website there. That website, though, here at headquarters in Atlanta, it's michaelcarrealty.com. And that's the website we've built out. That's our Google My Business page. That's the maps. That's everything. But so then in Tennessee, we have Michael Carr Realty TN.com, and we did the exact same thing. And then of course we link back and forth between the two. Are we maximizing what we could be doing, or should we be michaelcarrealty.com with another location in Tennessee as far as Google search goes?
Right. Okay. In terms of website. Yeah. You can actually argue it both ways, unfortunately.
I've heard it argued both ways.
Yes.
Google doesn't pay an enormous amount of attention to the .tn. It's one signal amongst 200,000. So that isn't vitally important. Two different websites. Now here you have a question, which is basically, does it help my business to have a dedicated website for each of those locations? In terms of my clients, will it be clearer to my clients? If I have clients coming onto one single website that serves two different states, and I have to say to them, which state are you in? That potentially doesn't make sense for the user and doesn't help Google. But the advantage of having one single site is that all of your information is focused in the same place. It's easier to manage, and any signals that are credibility signals about the website are going to be stronger because they're more focused. Whereas when you have two websites, you're dividing them. Now for Kalicube, we're not a realtor, obviously. I created 5 different websites as an experiment. So I have a webinar series, I have a podcast, I have a SaaS platform, and I have my own website, and then the Kalicube.com main business website. And what has happened is that the sites that I created are weak and do not rank very well in Google because they have no history and they have relatively little in terms of backlinks, in terms of mentions. But if you search for Kalicube, they all come up all the time. So because I'm pushing my brand name and getting people to search my brand name, it's an advantage because then I get to dominate that message with the 2 or 3 websites.
And
so there's another consideration you can throw in the mix. I mean, if it's state to state, I don't know America incredibly well. I would think, yes, it would be better generally to have 2 websites. But once again, it could be that one single website that's easier to manage.
Yeah, I've seen big brokerages do both. And of course, we're always aspiring to be one of those. And so I've seen success in both areas. Did a lot of research on it. From from the layman's on the street, I was like, okay, if I want to be something, look to imitate that's already done it. And both have happened. So we went the route of more websites. So we're going to stick with that path for a minute, see what happens, but it's been working good so far. All right. Hey, next question, brokerage view versus agent view on Google. How does it help or hurt to have several people showing up at the same address?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't a problem in of itself. This is the question I was talking about that I remembered from earlier on, is that idea of multiple people at a single address. Now, from that perspective, obviously for Google, when you're searching for the brokerage, it will give you the brokerage. When you're searching for the individual people, it will give you the person's result. When they're searching for a specific service within that area, the company website, the brokerage website will always rank unless the people have optimized for those terms within their own websites. But in terms of Google's understanding of multiple people working from the same office, there is absolutely no problem, except for the fact that those multiple, the multiple people, from its perspective, it's going to be looking and saying, well, at what point does it become unreasonable in terms of Google business profiles?
Gotcha. Okay.
So, I mean, from my perspective, once again, it comes back to what I was saying is make your mind up, be clear, educate Google. And the most important thing is to sit down and spend the time to think about, where am I going? What am I trying to do? Safety questions also need to be taken into consideration. Where is my career going to be going? And how do I need to set myself up today to make sure that I don't have to change something in 2 years' time? Because one thing with a child is if you've taught it something for 2 years and then suddenly you say, well, actually, now it's changed, that can be quite complicated.
Yes, it can.
Terrain. So sit down, think about it, build a strategy, build a way forward, and stick to it. Make sure that it's the right one right off the bat. Very much like branding is, don't rush in, think it through, figure it out. And don't do what I do, which is mad experiments of creating 5 sites to see what will happen.
But that's kind of
what
your
I'm here
thing.
That's what makes you the expert, though, Jason. That's what you have done. You've put in the labor, man. You've done the walk, like you've done.
Yeah.
That's why we can come to you for these kind of information and get your book to tell us, Did we cover this? Business address on Google. Should you list your home as a business address? Yeah, we covered that.
Yeah, we covered that. And it really is a question of, and one additional point is if you intend to go out alone, prepare the terrain. I mean, I'm not sure whether people leave brokerages and become independent completely. But if that's part of your life plan it from now, work with the brokerage, but make sure it's all prepared in your head and that your explanation of everything is already in place.
Hey, great advice right there. Okay. Like, listen, do not quote me, anybody on this thing, that I'm telling you to leave your brokerage. Listen, people ask me all the time, big brokerage, small brokerage, boutique brokerage, puppy mill brokerage, like where do I join? And I'm like, look, join based on what you want out of your career, not just today, but 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. There really is a comfortable spot and an arguability that any one of those is perfect for you. Okay. Some brokerages are famous for training. Some are famous for recruitment. Some are famous for, some people say they come to me and they're like, I don't want to get lost in a big brokerage. I want a broker that's going to support me and help me and support what I want to do. But what Jason's saying is very important. Plan not just for today, but also look at the future. You don't want, even if you think to yourself, okay, I'm never going to be a broker. I'm never going to be an independent broker. I want the support of a bigger broker or something that's around me. And you have your own website, though. You start now with that, using that information, because you don't want to just start over. Now I'm going to be a broker. I had this shining epiphany. Now I want to open up my own company or whatnot. And you're starting from scratch, and you literally are having to reteach that infant Google how to see you. So great advice. We're coming towards an end right here, guys.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, kind of that last point. I mean, having not understood anything about the brokerage and real estate industry, I now understand a little bit more, and I understand the specific problems. But the foundational aspect is sit down, think about it, get your brand right, which is what you guys do, but also plan out where you intend to go, and most importantly, have a home on the internet. One website that you own, that you control, whether it's for Google or anything. Don't send people to Facebook on your advertising flyers. Send them to your website. I never understood why people sent people to Facebook. And your website can be a one-page website today, and it can grow into a big website tomorrow, or it can always be a one-page website. But have a website. It's $15 a year for the domain name, maybe $20 a year for hosting. There's a great service called Duda, D-U-D-A. They have a really good system. It's not WordPress. It's a bit like Wix, but it's better than Wix. And it's cheap and it's easy, and anybody can do it, because WordPress can be difficult to manage. There are always advantages and disadvantages with WordPress. You can do lots of different things. You've got bells and whistles and plugins and all sorts of things, but it can be heavy to manage and difficult to manage. Something like Duda, which is pre-built, they look after all of the updates and the difficulties and the technical stuff, and you can just get on with designing your website. So something like Duda is a great solution with your own domain. Start with one page, define who you are, who you serve, what you offer. Build out from there when you've figured out what your career is going to be.
I love it. I love it. Tanya, you got anything to add?
No, I just, I want to reiterate that, prepare your terrain, right? Prepare it, as Jason says, which is a perfect way of saying it. We deal with a lot of people who come in to start to build their brand, and they say, okay, here's my future plan. I want to open my own brokerage. I want to move to another brokerage. I want to start with this brokerage. I want to bring my family member into and build a family business, or I want to prepare for retirement in 10 years. Whatever those things are, that's important that you look that far ahead for it and prepare Google to show the path to where you want to go. Right. So now I think there are also what you see on your screen. These QR codes will take you to a free guide to produce great copywriting for SEO in 2022. And that is Jason's authorship.
Yeah, and a quick word on copywriting. I mean, copywriting for SEO, people think, oh, I've got to put lots of the word in and synonyms and repeat myself. And it's not. It's good quality copywriting written in a way that both pleases humans can understand, and Google can understand. And it's quite a good guide. It's actually one of the lessons from one of my courses that I never released. And we've turned it into a PDF guide, and it teaches you to write in a way that will educate Google without the geeky code. Great copywriting alone will educate Google. And we've had clients just using copywriting techniques, getting great brand SERPs, getting great representation of their brand on Google. Copywriting is the foundation. And I love that, because copywriting for marketing is human, and it's talking to our audience. And all we're doing is talking to our audience through the filter of Google. And if our writing is understood by Google, it will represent us accurately to our audience.
Perfect.
Great takeaway.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Jason, thank you so much for your time. I know specifically this one, squeezing it in is we really appreciate it.
Yes. On top of this, you guys should know Jason teaches courses, and he said he has written 47,000 words a day for the last week or so.
Sorry.
Right?
Oh no, it was 427 between 4 and
4-2. I understood that.
427. I thought you said 4.
Yeah, 4 to 7,000.
I thought, my goodness, that's a lot, Jason.
No, that would be insane.
You're killing it. Okay, but still 4 to 7,000.
That's still a lot.
That's a lot when you're trying to manage a whole lot of other things, plus a move. And he's in Paris right now. So we appreciate you so much. And I appreciate all of you attending today.
Yeah, thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you so much for sticking with us. Make sure to snap those QR codes. And Leslie also put the links in the comments as well. It's for you to go grab our guide so that you can attract, convert, and charge more for your services. Okay. And that's in the real estate world. That's a big deal.
Oh yes, I'm actually thinking. So I was thinking now I might go and download my own copywriting guide on Kalicube.com, because maybe if I read it, I'll be able to write 47,000 words a day.
I love it.
Well, I know I'm going to try. I'm downloading it. I'll be happy to write 400 words today.
I am actually going to be doing it and going to be setting up a literal system to do so. So it's how much I believe in it. So I hope you guys do too. Yeah, Jason, thank you so much, man. And Tanya, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you, everybody that tuned in. Remember what we tell you at BrandFace: prosperity favors the bold. Yep. So be bold, especially with your brand. And on Google.
That's right. And thank you, Leslie, for all the work in the presentation. It looks beautiful once again. Appreciate it. Thanks, Nicole.
Yes, Leslie, you're an angel. Thank you.
All right. Indeed. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Jason.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for having me again. Wonderful.
You bet.